Hi, this is Bryan and I'm welcoming you to Salesforce Sessions. Today we're going to talk to Sean Dutkewych, and Sean's a really interesting guy because he is a senior account executive at ListEngage, and he's got some interesting points of view about how he helps marketers and managers navigate the digital landscape. Welcome to the podcast, and let's go hear directly from Sean Dutkewych himself. Good afternoon. I'm your host, Bryan, and I am bringing you today's episode of Salesforce Sessions, where we talk about everything Salesforce as well as we all go down our digital transformation journey. So today with us, we have Sean Dutkewych. Am I saying that right, Sean?
Dutkewych, yep.
Yep, Dutkewych. And so Sean joins us from our very own ListEngage. Sean is a senior account executive there, and he's kind of been in the business for 20 years. So everybody knows that, like, I love sales and I love the Salesforce ecosystem. So speaking to guys like Sean is always interesting because they always have a unique perspective. And Sean himself, he's been in this space for like 20 years. He's worked for Salesforce. He's worked in the partner ecosystem. He's been a customer of Salesforce. He's worked in a wide variety of industries, including financial services, healthcare and life sciences, manufacturing, technology, travel and hospitality, and retail. So he's got a lot of experience. So Sean, first of all, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Bryan. It's great to be here.
So Sean, you've been in the space for a long time. What brought you here? How'd you get here?
Yeah, so as you said, I've probably been in the Salesforce ecosystem the longest as a end user of the product. I've been being in sales roles, most of my career here. Always, utilizing the CRM portion of Salesforce. From there, didn't really turn my attention to the digital marketing side of it till a couple of years ago when I got an opportunity to go work for Salesforce and actually sell the Marketing Cloud software platform. From there, I jumped over to the partner side to kind of support that whole, ongoing process that's there. It was kind of an interesting transition, being somebody that was focused on actually trying to sell the software versus actually supporting your customers in a little bit different perspective by getting them to utilize and get the most value out of the purchase that they had with Salesforce.
Yeah, I totally get that. I think that sales in this market is pretty unique because we don't sell the software. We help people use the software, and um, personally, I find myself a little frustrated sometimes because you see what people need, you see what they're trying to do, but it's kind of hard to get them across to cross the chasm. And there's so much noise in the market out there, right? There's so many different products and services to try to solve different marketing problems. How do you even help someone navigate all of that?
Yeah, I think you're 100% right that there is just a lot of different things for people to look at, and it can get very confusing for them. So what I try to do is to, as best we can, simplify what their actual needs are and what their goals are, and how you can best align to get them down that path to achieve whatever business goals they have at the end results there. Definitely can be challenging too on the customer side when they're talking about more technology and they might be more brand oriented marketers and don't necessarily have the background on the technology side. So when they start hearing some different terminology around that, they can get lost in the noise of just technical talk. And so sometimes it's easier to try to bring them down into the results of the technology, not the actual nuts and bolts of the whole thing from there. Uh, what I try to do too is connect the dots around, what we can do to help support them. Often they don't have the internal resources on hand to help with that decisioning process, to kind of give them a comfort level that what they're looking to purchase will actually get them to the end results that they're looking to achieve.
Hmm. You know, um, the end results that they're looking to achieve, I find that oftentimes I'm not sure that marketers know what they're trying to achieve. Like they think they know, and they know what you know the business world tells them they should be trying to achieve, but I don't know if they know what they're really trying to achieve. And so let me say a statement and I want you to respond to it. At the end of the day, marketers are trying to drive engagement with their brand.
Yes, that is definitely true. And I think there's a couple aspects to it. There's the, ability to try to drive engagement with their brand because they're trying to increase sales or drive some sort of purpose to purchase something from them or buy a service or product. But it's also that kind of ongoing nurturing that you might have with them where it's just keeping them, making sure you're a top of mind person. So when the next time they might need a service from you or a product from you, that they're ready to go. And I mean, if you think about it, like, you know, 20 years ago, you would never have thought of needing to have like a text message reminder of like every appointment that you have. You'd get a phone call from your doctor's appointment beforehand or whatever from there. Now I think you wouldn't even pick up the phone if they called you. You'd be, you're looking for a text message or an email from there because that's just the convenience that we have when we're all walking around with a computer in our pocket. So I think that's kind of changed a lot of people's thinking around that. From there. And the engagement is kind of expected from the consumer level. So the marketers are kind of hands are forced to kind of add that service as part of their general, touch points with whether it's a current customer or prospective customer.
Hmm. So do you think everybody's on the engagement bandwagon? Do you think everybody realizes that that's what they're trying to do?
Uh, Maybe not consciously realize it, but I definitely think that it's in the background there for everybody. And I think, from a company perspective, marketers, I think it's more top of mind for them that they know that if they do not make this transition and this transformation within their business, they're going to be behind. And I don't think, at this point, there's anybody that thinks that's not where the world's moving to.
Yeah, I found a statistic. I'm trying to find it right here. But the statistic was something to the effect, oh yeah, it was by like Constellation Research. And here it is. Actually, yeah, Ray Wang of Constellation Research, he basically said that when um, companies who have improved engagement increase cross-sell by 22%, drive upsell revenue from 13 to 51%, and increase order sizes from 5 to 85%.
I believe
That's
it. Those,
crazy.
it
That's
is.
nuts.
I know that's business transformation at its best, right there, right? Those are real results that come from this. And I think as end users or consumers ourselves, we've all seen that and probably been part of that where, companies that we engage with that do better to communicate and engage with you as an individual. When you order something from the grocery store, because we're all doing that because of COVID now, when they give you the reminder and says, "Hey, would you like to reorder this?" And you say, "Yes, of course I do." Maybe you wouldn't have used that same grocery store if you didn't get that message, right? So I think
Mhm.
that is definitely a fact that the better on top of these companies are with you and their communications and the timeliness of it to make sure that it's, at getting the right message at the right time to the right person, you're going to see those kinds of results.
Yeah, so now in though is something that I think is a sneaky little secret about digital marketing, right? So, okay, you're the marketer. I've got to drive engagement. I'm the marketer, that's what I do. Okay, so I'm gonna start doing some email. Maybe I'm gonna do some cross channel. Maybe I'm gonna put some social in there. But it's not just enough to buy the software, right? Because you've got to use it, and then you've got to constantly change it and adapt it. So how does the marketer actually manage that? Because that's crazy. If you think
Yeah,
about just how much there is to stay abreast of, to just, even when you've decided, yeah, I need to drive engagement, just to keep that going.
Yeah, I mean, I think the first step is to make that acknowledgement that you need to drive engagement and then to go forward and make a purchase of, marketing software from there. But yeah, then that's where the real challenge comes, right? That a lot of times companies think that's the hard decision, but really that's just the beginning of what your process is going to look like. And often the companies do not have the internal kind of knowledge base and skill sets for setting up and managing the software. And marketing, as you just said, is it's a journey. It's constantly changing and evolving throughout, each week, month, year. You never know what's next, and you have to pivot and adjust as you can. So you either have to go out and spend time to find and hire new people with new skill sets to help you manage and kind of support all of that, or you've got to look for, partners that know how to manage that for you, and you can outsource some of that work from them. And that way, you have a little bit more flexibility and nimbleness around that, where you don't know what the next phase might be, but having a strong partner supporting you doesn't really matter what challenges you come up with. You can always tap on them to kind of help come in and guide you to where you need to go to make sure you're getting the right stuff out the door that you need for your business to be successful.
Hmm. So thinking about that and trying to like just make that a little more tangible. Um, because I just think about some of my own marketing challenges, and what does that actually mean when it comes to, you know, on like in the scope of a year, right? What should a marketer be doing on an annual basis as they think about kind of their digital marketing plan for the year? What are some of the things they should be doing?
Yeah, well, obviously every business is different. So there's, like a lot of, variables that could go into that. But really what they need to do is at the very least, is set up a plan of what their expectations are for the year. And
Hmm.
that's, trying to create how many campaigns they might be processing and setting up each month, each quarter, just to kind of get a gauge from that. If they have new product launches coming down or conferences they might be hosting that they want to engage with, from there, just anything that might have some sort of, generic touch point that they know is going to be coming down the pike, to plan for that. Obviously, there's always ad hoc things that come up throughout the year from that standpoint. And, depending on your company setup, do you have multiple brands that you have to, worry about? Is it just a single thread? Is it B2B versus B2C? There's a lot of variables that could come into what that looks like from there. To just kind of understand what you're trying to do from there. Like if you're launching with a new custom app that you're trying to get all of your current customers to download and start using, you make sure you want to have that plan in place from there too. So you know that you have the resources and the capacity to be able to handle stuff like that.
Yeah, and before the show started, you were telling me about kind of the strategy practice and how strategy is starting to get intermixed with kind of ongoing support, service support of the software. Talk to me about a strategy practice. Why is that important?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's just best so you can actually have the best laid plans to execute off of from there. And I think a lot of companies today don't necessarily have that in house. That's just not something that they may have been looking to for their current staffing needs. Which as things evolve, I think that's something that's kind of probably crept up and has become a bigger need for them. Understanding how to structure your digital marketing strategy is actually quite important, because it helps you plan for everything and make sure that you do have the proper resources in place for everything that you're looking to do. And again, if you don't have the internal staff to do that, obviously there's partners out there that are work very closely with Salesforce and their customers to help them with that from there. And depending on the size of your company, it probably doesn't make sense to hire somebody full time in one of those roles when you might only need X amount of hours per week or per month. If it's not something that you think is a full-time role, for the partner option is really the best way to go, is that you can get what you need and not have to bring on a full-time resource if it's not really a full-time need for your business.
Yeah, I think sometimes when I think about how businesses make decisions about things and how marketers make decisions about things, I think there's something that's lost in that decision making process, because you described um, two kind of functions, right? You said, hey, this is what you should be thinking about for a year. You should be doing these things based on these criterias in your business. And then you made another statement where you said, hey, like strategy is important and you should be thinking about what your strategy is. And really, when you say strategy, you're also really saying, how am I optimizing the use of the software to achieve my goals? But I see that people get into this idea that, hey, I've got to either just do it or I've got to wait and plan everything out. No one wants to do one or the other. And I think what gets lost is that sometimes your best approach is kind of an incremental approach. You don't need a 3 month planning session, but you do need to start with, hey, I think, you know, here are a few goals to start with. Based on those goals, here's the outcome. Here's a great way to use the software to achieve those goals. Um, do you see that incremental approach, or do you think people are very binary in their thinking?
No, and I think as we said before, marketing is kind of an evolving part of the business. That to be too locked into any one particular kind of plan might kind of hurt you at long term from there. I think planning is always important because you want to have a path forward, from there. But you also have to be very nimble to be able to make those adjustments. And look, marketing, as we all know, you send out a campaign, you get results back from it. If those results aren't good, you don't want to try that same type of campaign again. You obviously need to adjust and make, and make changes to make sure that the next one might be more successful or not. If it is a huge success, maybe you do want to kind of duplicate it from there and you can go from there. So I think having that ability, like you said, to do it in more incremental type thing probably is the best strategy for the most success for your brand.
John, when you're talking with customers, what's the thing you wish you could tell them that you can't always tell them?
Well, as we're trying to often, dig into their business and kind of what some of their challenges are, we often hear comments like, well, I guess we don't know what we don't know. So when we ask some questions, they often don't really have an answer for us because they haven't thought of that question before, so they don't really have an answer for us. So, in those situations, what I wish customers would think about is, that's clearly means that they don't have a full blown digital marketing strategy out there, and they probably don't have the resources to kind of sit down and start to do that. What I'd like them to think about is what resources, maybe their third party or partner resources that they could tap into to help with that, because that once they get a better functioning plan of what they're looking to achieve, it's much easier to support them when they know what they want to do. It's really hard when a customer comes in and says, can you come in and help us? But they don't really know what type of solution they're looking to, what the outcome is going to be.
Yeah. What if they don't know?
That's, I mean, I think that's where they need to really do some, sessions where it's really break down, whether it's, doing a full blown audit of their current process and setup and understanding what they're doing today, and then trying to understand what it is that they think they can improve on or where they think they need pieces of improvement. And, then, they can make some suggestions on where the next investment should be to help them, move forward in the right direction.
Hmm. Do you think they're well, just talk a little bit more about that. Like, so I bought software. Maybe I'm new to a position. I've inherited a suite of software that's being used to push out the email, to hold all the data, to engage with customers. What would an audit do for me?
I mean, what it does is, I think, is it gives you an idea of where you have gaps in your process or where you have inefficiencies in your process. You may be sending email one way to this particular audience. You may be sending it a separate way to another particular audience. You might be doing SMS through another channel or platform from there. Data might be stored in multiple different places. And then you realize, are you really maximizing everything that you have there, and are you really doing what's best to your end customer? Because you may be missing out if the data is not tied together. They may be getting cross channel messages at the same time, the same messages multiple times, just because your systems aren't necessarily talking to each other. So what the audit does is really kind of give you an idea of what you're doing today, where you might be making some inefficiencies or even some mistakes from there, and how you can improve that, and potentially streamline some processes, and potentially even save some money by consolidating some of the systems you may be using.
But Sean, I'm the new marketer in this position. I'm the marketer. Shouldn't I know all these things anyways?
The simple answer is you should, but do you have the ability? I mean, where I think a lot of companies have challenges is they have a marketing team which are marketers, and then you have an IT team, which are your technologists, but you don't necessarily have technologists and marketers that kind of understand the same language. So there really can be a gap in a lot of companies if you don't go out and hire like a technical marketer or an IT person with an understanding of marketing technology. And there's a lot of companies have gaps there, and that's where they need to look out for different levels of resources that have that level of expertise to bring in to help them with that process. And like I said before, if you don't feel like that's a full-time position at your company, there's a lot of partners out there with deep marketing technology knowledge base and understanding that you can bring in to do this for you and get you, into a good spot where you're actually getting, level setting your current platforms that you're using and get you to a better spot where you're getting more value out of the dollars you're spending on those platforms already.
Yeah, I think the best, example there, it's almost like your kind of specialist example, right? You're going to a techno marketer or someone who specializes in the software because they're not going to come up with the what should be done and why should you do it or what has value for my business. Once you figure that out, they're going to know how to actually make that work.
Right.
They're going to know how to really implement that. And I think that's what's really lost in a lot of these initiatives, because it's not about going into the software and just doing something. It's about actually really extracting the promise of what that software could do.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
Tell me, when you're out there and you start working with a customer, um, you know, from the past, or the present, tell me like a great story about, you know, one of those times we were able to get a customer in and really help them be successful.
That's a good question. I mean, I think where we can add the most value, and you see this a lot, and there's often a little bit of friction and within companies where the marketing team might be looking to bring in a partner, and they're getting some pushback often from IT because their job is to support their different businesses within the company. So they try to say, let us do this for you, let us do this for you, and they start to dig in and start to do the implementation or some of the more technical work within the platform, and it just never gets to the point where the marketers are comfortable with using it. It's just not there. And so where I think, some of our more successful, we feel good, is where we get brought in, we come in, we do the work, we get the platform being utilized as the marketing team needs it to be, and they're starting to see the value of it from there. And then they can go back to the business, whether that's the CFO or the CEO of the company, and say, see, this is why we needed to spend some money to bring in an consulting partner that are experts within this platform to help us be successful, and they can show the real dollar values that actually were brought to fruition from there. And it's not that the IT team didn't do what they were trying to do, they just didn't have the knowledge base to be able to do it. Their heart was in the right place, but they just don't have the skills to do it all the time.
Yeah, I think that it's really the same problem, almost like replicating itself over and over again, right? The marketer thinks, hey, well, I'm supposed to know how to do this, but they can't because it's really a specialty.
Yep.
And they need to know all the other stuff that makes this possible. And IT says, oh, wait, no, I should know how to do this, but they can't because it's a specialty. And again, they need to provide the support that makes this possible. But they're both doing kind of the same thing.
Yeah, it's definitely a partnership between marketing, IT, and with marketing technology with a partner as well.
Yeah. So kind of, kind of thinking through, the whole process that we've talked about. I've said this multiple times on multiple shows that when I look at you know, the marketing landscape, and you look at all of the things out there that marketers have to worry about, I don't understand how any marketer keeps up. Right? It's just there's too many options, too many choices, too many great salespeople, and too many great marketing campaigns that convince you that this one thing is all you need to do. And so as a business leader, the ability for me to distill it down to a question and then or to really frame a question to make a decision as to we should do this or we should do that, I think is really hard. How do business leaders get comfortable with kind of making decisions about their, about their team's marketing program?
Yeah, I would agree. I think that is a probably the biggest challenge that the businesses have is making that decision to make a change or to say, you know what we need to do, we need to make an investment to you know move us into the future here. And I think it takes, they use the term trailblazer all the time, and people that are really thinking forward when it comes to it, that, you know, they have to realize that the status quo is not going to work going forward. And so it's
Mhm.
those kind of visionaries that say, you know what we need to do? We need to make an investment and we need to move forward. Now, I think you're right. We've all seen those slides when you see all the different marketing automation tools out there, and there's, thousands of them out there. To be able to decide which one is the right one for you is probably the next biggest challenge from there. And I think that's probably what scares people away and makes it easier for them to say, let's not make a decision because there's just too many offerings out there from there. But I think that's the wrong strategy because, as we said before, the world's already moved on. They're expecting a better digital touch point communications with personalization on that. If you don't move forward, you're losing ground to all your competitors. And I think that, they have to understand that leadership at these companies has to understand that that's where they need to focus and they need to put some investment dollars towards that.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I find so amazing is the number of things that pre-pandemic were nice to haves during the pandemic were essential. Now, if I can say it, we're getting past the pandemic. I don't know if that's forbidden, but as we move past the pandemic, I don't think people are going to want to get rid of some of these things or give them up. They're used to them.
I'm sure there are people out there that were, technology opposed, where they said the way it was working was fine, and I don't need any of this new stuff. And then pandemic hit. You're right, and they started using it, and they're like, I don't know how we ever went around without it. I mean, I don't think we all thought we'd be walking around with phones and computers in our pockets that we could do all half the work that we need to do from anywhere. Like, it's just that's just what's happening. Whether COVID accelerated or not, it was going to get there, I think. So I think it just may have pushed people to move a little bit faster with their decision making and maybe some of the adoption of that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think specifically just about grocery delivery, right? Like the idea that I would be okay having my groceries delivered just never really occurred to me. And now I find it incredibly convenient. Um, with the exclusion of picking produce, which is the only thing that I really like to do myself anymore. The rest of it's just like, yeah, just have it ready for pickup or ready for delivery. I don't know how I go back.
Yeah, I agree. I think there was a lot of people that didn't ever think that was going to be a necessary part of their lives, but now it's kind of become such a convenience. It frees up so much of their time that they're probably not going to go back to in-person grocery shopping full time anymore.
Yeah. And have you also had that experience where you're starting to get used to kind of some things being digitized or automated, or again, that customer experience having, taken that step to another level? Um, and then you encounter a business where there's none of that, and it's like, what? Why does that not work? It almost like throws you for a loop.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I mean, think about it like, this is, probably dating ourselves a little bit, but, when you wanted to, make a haircut appointment and you'd have to call up and find out what availability was there. Now, if the barbershop or the salon doesn't have an app to say, hey, these are the times available for whatever, it makes it so much more convenient. To be honest with you, don't really want to pick up the phone and call somebody to ask what availability is. It's just something that you can sit on your couch and look at your phone and set it from there. And I think there's a lot of things like that where you might be choosing businesses that make those kinds of conveniences for you that you're
Mhm.
going to gravitate towards just because you just don't want the hassle of having to do some of the quote unquote manual stuff that we took for granted that it was just part of life, a while ago, that it's just no longer kind of thought of as a necessary thing to do.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Um, so kind of switching gears a little bit, we've talked about the business leader, we've talked about the marketer. Um, let's kind of move away from all of that for a moment. And we work in this ecosystem with Salesforce. Um, Obviously, we're full disclaimer, we're bought into the ecosystem. That's what we do. Um, but why is the Salesforce ecosystem? Why is it the one that's kind of risen to the top?
I think it's just the way Salesforce has kind of structured its business, where they've made a conscious effort to invest heavily in their software business and to grow that software business. And what they've done is really kind of develop this ecosystem of partners to help support that growth and their customers. So instead of Salesforce having to be the hands-on presence after the software sale, they've kind of lined up all these great partners across all their platforms to help support their customers on an ongoing go forward basis. And I
Mhm.
think, as a business, you can only invest in so much of it, and they've chosen to kind of invest in the growth of the software side. So there's a very big opportunity for companies to come in and help support that from the partner side with consulting and hands-on technical support.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think the other thing that's kind of interesting with Salesforce is that, they keep buying other companies and they keep expanding the product mix. And usually it's around, well, because we deal with Marketing Cloud, it's, around other Marketing Cloud or things that will be add-ons to Marketing Cloud and to expand, the engagement potential. Um, but what's funny is that they're expanding so much, it's so hard to keep up with at times. And, again, it's a challenge for us and we live it and breathe it every day. I kind of can't imagine how anyone else deals with it.
Yeah, and I do think you're right that the challenge from the partner side is just making sure you're staying. I mean, it's a constant learning process, right? There's new
Yeah.
products, there's updates to the current products, there's everything that goes into that from there. And I think that's why partners are a good fit as well, because they have their level of expertise in probably niche parts of the platform. You don't have to be a Tableau expert. There's definitely a lot of Tableau partners out there that know what's going on here. Obviously, we're Marketing Cloud first with some Sales and Service Cloud expertise as well. But you don't have to be the end all be all to every piece of the platform. And I think that's why when you talk about the ecosystem, why it's so large is because there are so many products and so many different things that there is a need for a lot of different partners out there. And then there's really a space for them all, from, the big consulting firms down to the smaller individual, that are just helping support companies out there.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. All right. Well, Sean, I want to thank you very much for taking time to be on Salesforce Sessions, and look forward to talking with you again. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me. I had a great time. Thank you very much.